Hello everybody, it is Alex Conservative Coin Collector. Welcome back to my channel. I hope everything's going well on your side of the camera. Today's video, I'm going to continue my series on a complete value of. I started with the cent, and then I did the nickel. Originally, I was going to do them until I hit 2025, because that seemed like the logical place to stop was current year. But one way or another, I found cutoff dates for both coins. The dime and if I do the quarter are going to be no exception. Except I already know the cutoff date before filming. 1964. 1964 is the cutoff date for 90% silver coins in the quarters and the dimes. The half dollar had silver until 1968, but it was only about 40% silver, and after that they were cut off. And, with the other coins, I'll get to those when I get to those. Yeah, you'll have your varieties and your errors and all that good stuff when it comes to dimes after 1965 that could be worth a few bucks. But when it comes to errors and varieties and your special coins, that's a whole separate video. This is just the plain Jane dime. I'm going to start in 1796 and work my way up to 1964 and cover all the plain dimes in between there. There are definitely going to be mint marks that are worth more. D, S, P. There's O for New Orleans, CC for Carson City. I may see that with some of the older coins. Maybe even some of the newer ones. But I'm going to do my best for each year to cover the extreme minimum and the extreme maximum, no matter what mint mark. That's the plan, at least. I have a lot to get to, so I'm going to cut this intro off right now. Tell you to, well, I don't think I had to tell you, but I'm going to wait away because of, algorithm. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment and do all that good stuff. And with that being said, I'm the Conservative Coin Collector. On to the dime. Starting off, we have the 1796 dripped bust dime. A coin in circulating condition can be worth $1,950 to $21,000, while an uncirculated example could fetch over $1 million. We are starting very strong right off the bat. From between $2,100 all the way up to $535,000. Between $1,250 all the way up to $360,000. Keeping ahead a couple years to 1810 because there was no dime until 1810. It's the 1810 Classic Head Large Cent. This cent ranges from $80 in good condition to $1,700 in the best condition possible. From $325 to over $46,500. From between $19.95 to over $2,950. From $60 up to $1,600. From $369 all the way up to over $30,000. I'm skipping ahead over 20 years to 1837. Why am I doing that? Because there was no dime until 1837. And in 1837, the City Liberty dime was born. The 1837 model can range from $37 all the way up to $58,500. Between $25,000 and $40,000. Between $10,000 to $19,500. From $50 up to $40,000. Between $10 and $18,500. From $20 up to $18,000. From $11 up to $8,250. Between $150 up to $46,750. From $11 up to $11,250. From $200 up to $60,000. From $16 up to $13,000. Between $22 and $485. Between $19 and $30,000. $10 and $16,500. Between $20 and $19,500. Between $11 and $10,000. $11 and $66,500. From $10 to $12,500. Between $15 and $25,000. Between $10 and $12,000. Between $11 and $385. $11 and $88,125. Between $11 and $260. Between $25 and $160. Between $10 and $67,500. Between $10 and $6,750. Between $940 and $1,850. $250 and $1,750. Between $450 and $18,000. Between $40 and $27,000. Between $490 and $2,200. Between $10 and $950. Between $2 or $3 up to $8,025. Between $10 and $250. Between $10 and $6,100. Between $10 and $160. Between $15 and $34,000. Between $15 and $66,500. Between $10 and $10,500. Between $10 and $8,500. Between $10 and $29,000. Between $10 and $29,000. Between $175 and $25,850. $90 and $12,500. Between $125 and $13,500. Between $12 and $130. Between $12 and $31,375. $12 and $1,000. Between $12 and $15,500. From $20 to $27,000. Between $12 and $13,500. Between $12 and $6,450. Between $15 to $5,000. Between $12 and $6,150. Between $12 and $10,500. Moving right along with the barber dimes, the 1892 barber dime can fetch between $3 and as much as $40,000. Between $15 and $300. Between $15 and $330, but if you find one with an estimate mark, it can sell for over $1 million. Between $90 and $48,500. Between $90 to $170. From $2 to $11,500. From $3.50 to over $20,000. Between $2 and $90. Between $2 and $7,750. Between $2 and $5,750. Between $4 and $140. Between $4 and $850. I skipped about 4 years. I skipped ahead to 1907. That's because over the course of 4 years, the price of the dime had not changed. It was between $2 and $90 on average. from $2 to $6,750, $4 to $310. I'm covering 2 dimes in one clip. The 1910 and the 1911 dime are worth between $2 to $85. But of course the 1910 differs in that it can sell for as much as $13,000, but the 1911 isn't as lucky. Between $2 and $1,100, between $4 and $90. I can cover a few barber dimes in this next clip here. I have here the 1913 dime, and it's about the same value as the 1914, 15, and 16. They're all between $2 and $90. Moving right along to 1917, it's between $6 and $45. Between $2 and $1,100. Between $3 and $1,400. Between $2 and $1,300. Between $40 and $1,250. Seeing that very few mercury dimes are made in 1922, and you're probably not going to find one in circulation, I'm going to skip along to 1923. And a 1923 mercury dime can be worth between $3 and $28. Between $3.50 and $190. Between $3 and $25. I'm skipping right ahead to 1929 because 1925, 6, 7, 8, and 9 all share the same value, aside from a couple cents here and there. They're all between $2 and at most $25. Between $2.75 and $25. Between $3.25 and $85. Skipping ahead to 1934, because there were no mercury dimes minted in 1932, and in 1933 they're all face value. A 1934 mercury dime could be worth between $2.50 and $15. Between $3.30 and as much as $1,200. Between $2.25 and $550. Between $3.35 and $400. $3.35 and $425. Between $3.40 and $6. I'm skipping ahead to the final year of the mercury dime, 1945. Why am I doing that? Because the mercury dimes from 1941, 42, 43, 44, and 45 are all the same price. They're all between $3.35 and $5.75. Skipping past the 40s and moving right to 1950, because the rest of the 40s and 1950 are all worth between $2.85 and $3.35. Around $3.48. Between $2.85 and $3.35. Alright, I have to skip the 50s. I have to skip from 52 to 1960, and even 1960 is of similar value. If I continued, I would sound like a broken record. That's why you'll see me skip a couple years here and there, is because they're all the same value. And the 50s is no exception. The dime between 1952 and 1960 is worth between $2.80 and $3.30, give or take 10 or 15 cents for each year. Between $2.85 and $3.35. Between $2.80 and $3.30. Between $2.80 and $3.30. Between $2.80 and $3.30. Yep, 1964 is the cutoff date. I looked at 1965 through 1970, all 10 cents, and from 1970 onwards, all 10 cents. So, yep, 1964 is the end. I may or may not do quarters. This video took entirely too long to make, so I'm not sure. But I'm a conservative coin collector. You know, to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and hit the bell icon. Till next time, I'm signing off. So long, everybody.